want to talk today about 6 essentials when divorcing. I've made all the mistakes, so hopefully you won't have to. My first essential is get a lawyer. This may seem quite obvious, but there are some states where you have an option to have a do-it-yourself divorce, which is what I did. You basically just fill out the paperwork along with your spouse. You submit it to the court with a small fee, and voila, a few weeks later, you're divorced. And this can be a very appealing option for several reasons. First of all, you're not paying a lawyer. And in the midst of a divorce, when you have so much in your mind about your financial future, so much uncertainty, it can be a relief to think that you're saving money on a lawyer. And the second reason is that it can be very appealing to think that, we're good people, we're reasonable people. I'm not greedy. I am not trying to take advantage of my husband, and I trust him to not be greedy or take advantage of me. And so we're reasonable people, and we're not like everyone else who has to resort to a lawyer. We're going to be good, decent people. And then these seem like good reasons, but it's very short-term, short-sighted thinking, and you really do need a lawyer. You need someone whose mind is not a mess and who has experience and who will be capable of looking out for your best interests. It's not selfish or petty to look out for your best interests in a divorce. And I'll be bringing out some points in my other essentials of why this, especially financially, is going to be very important. And also if you have children, for custodial matters. So my next essential is get therapy right away. I've been divorced for 7 years, and I've only started seeing a therapist in the past year. And I wish I had done it right away. I needed it. I really kind of went it alone, and I suffered a lot more than I needed to because of that. One of my main reasons that I didn't start therapy sooner was that I felt like I couldn't afford it. And here we point back to the first essential of getting a lawyer, because you need to make sure that you secure your financial position as best you can so that you can afford things like getting therapy, so that you can grieve and heal and not prolong the process as much as I did. And the third essential is to reevaluate the idea that kids are resilient. This is a very well-intentioned phrase that kind and compassionate people repeat to divorcing parents to try to reassure them that don't worry, your kids will be okay. Kids are resilient. And I do believe there is truth to that, but I also think that that can be damaging, because as divorcing parents, we know that it's hurting our children that we are getting divorced, and it's very hard to face that. And it can be very tempting to just put our heads in the sand, especially since we have so much pain ourselves. But it's very dangerous to downplay the level of pain and trauma that our children experience when we get divorced. So we need to seek out every possible resource to help us understand what the child's experience is, to give us the tools to talk to them, and it needs to be not just a one-time talk, but a continual conversation throughout their lives, because it will affect them throughout their lives. And my recommendation is that you also, when you start therapy for yourself right away, you should start your children in therapy right away, because even if you become very skilled at talking to them and have a very good rapport and feel like you're getting a lot of openness from them, in my experience, there is so much that my children will not share with me. And I believe that they know that if they shared with me exactly how they feel, that it would break my heart. So they are protecting me. And for that reason, I really feel like they need an outside party who is skilled at working with children in this setting, that they can really tell everything to and spill their guts to, and that they can get that help from someone other than the parents of dealing with the experience of having their parents divorce. So, yet another reason that you need to be able to afford certain essentials like therapy for yourself and for your children. And I also recommend that you have your lawyer add into the divorce decree a provision for both parents to have an equal say in the choice of the therapist and in that process, because that can become a point of contention. So the fourth essential for divorcing is prepare for trauma. And I have used this word very intentionally already, and I focus again on it here because I think that in our current society, there is sort of an overcompensation from the past stigmatization of divorce. Now I feel like it's gone a little too far in the other direction, that people are overly positive about divorce. And I've encountered a lot of people who just told me how brave I am, and almost kind of like patting me on the back and saying, well, good for you. And I just felt like they didn't really get that divorce is actually quite devastating. It's not just a pure positive thing. So, and I know that as Tolstoy wrote, every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. So not everyone experiences it the same way. There's depends on the individual. It depends on how long you were married, what the nature of the relationship was like, how many children you have, what ages they are. And I have a friend who told me, think of how many unhappily married people there are out there, but nobody is unhappily divorced. That's just not my experience. But he was very happily divorced. So, because of this portrayal in our culture that divorce is just a positive and good for you, you may not be properly prepared for the trauma. Health professionals list it as the second most stressful life event right after the death of a loved one. And you do need to be prepared for divorce to seriously impact your mental and your physical health. I developed an autoimmune condition as a result of mostly stress that I have lived through these past 7 years. My fifth essential is date with extreme caution. You are not in your right mind when you are newly divorced, and you may be the only one who doesn't see that. You may be able to fool your dating partners for a little while. You will find yourself sounding very eloquent when you describe what went wrong with your marriage, why it ended, who you wanted to be but couldn't in your marriage, who you are now, who you want to become, what you're looking for in life, what you're looking for in a partner, whether you even want to be in a committed relationship. But when you're saying these things, and there's a sense in which you're really just sort of trying out how the words sound, and the charm and vivaciousness that you can put on in a dating situation will pretty quickly give way, most likely, to some pretty crazy behavior, such as just desperation, insecurity, neediness, and really embarrassing crying jags. And you're an unreliable narrator to your own story because you're still trying to figure it out. So you're just also extremely vulnerable to making really bad judgment calls. And so all of this just leads to more failed relationships that then have to get in line behind your divorce to be grieved through. Sometimes they'll get in line in front of your divorce because they're more recent and more immediate. And this will just prolong and delay your healing process. So I think that if you do think that you're looking for a future relationship, you need to understand that it's going to take years before you are capable of being a fit partner and of attracting a fit partner. So don't rush it. And the sixth and final essential that I have today is separate first. The state in which I got divorced did not have any kind of waiting period for separation before filing for divorce. Some states have up to a year of a waiting period. I think that is good. I think that I was very impatient to have my divorce finalized. But if I lived in a state where I had to wait, I think that would have been a good time for me to be sure of what I was doing, to have some counseling with my husband. And even if the counseling turns out it becomes obvious that it's not going to lead to reconciliation, I really wish that I could have gone through some sort of exit or debriefing or pre-divorce counseling to sort of sort through, have a little bit of closure, have an opportunity to ask my husband what was he thinking throughout our marriage, the opportunity to just ask my questions, because once the divorce is final, it's very likely that you will never have those questions answered and they'll haunt you. And another reason that I think that separation is a good idea is that when you are divorced and you have those nagging doubts and questions of whether you made the right decision, you can look back and say, yes, I waited for a year, I did everything I could, and I know that the decision I made was very carefully made. So these are my 6 essentials that I hope will be useful to you or someone you know when divorcing.